everyone, welcome to the latest episode of Product Marketing Perspective. I'm your host Kushal Khandelwal, a fellow product marketer, and I'm here to bring to you conversations with some of the most influential marketing leaders from the SaaS space in India. Today, I sit down with Ganesh Srinivasan, who's the director of product marketing at MoEngage. Ganesh is a seasoned product marketer with over 15 years of experience across GTM roles for high growth B2B SaaS companies. And he brings a blend of customer marketing, business strategy, business development, product marketing experience with him. And before we dive in into our conversations, welcome Ganesh. Super excited to have you here today. Uh, would you like to share a little bit about your journey into PMM, how you got into it, what keeps you going with our audience?
Yeah, first of all, thanks Kushal for the intro. Really glad to be here and sharing my thoughts with you and the audience of the PMM Perspective podcast. Regarding my journey into PMM, I would say it's not a linear one. It has its own twists and turns. See, actually, I started my career in manufacturing, right? Post my engineering in the area of new product development and product engineering of uninterrupted power supplies, basically the UPS, right? This was with Wipro Peripherals as a company. So when I was with Wipro, I got an opportunity to be a part of a really strategic, new product launch project for one of our key UPS product. Which was by in itself very revolutionary, back in time, every possible dimension, right? Either in terms of electronic functionalities, mechanical design, etc., right? So as part of this, opportunity, I got to work with, some of the brilliant product managers, marketing leaders and brand consultants, etc., right? And I got exposed to I would say, very detailed customer research process, which gave me a good, glimpse of how customer needs are captured from the market. How is it translated into building products, and then how is it translated to good positioning and great marketing thereafter. So I would say the reason I'm saying this is that's where my initial seeds of the marketing were sown in, right? Then eventually got interested in marketing as a sphere of domain. Went on to do my MBA in marketing. So post my MBA, picked up a sales role with Frost and Sullivan, and I was responsible
Mhm.
for business development of market research and industry, consulting services. My stint at Frost and Sullivan gave me a good exposure in terms of how market research is done in depth, right? After about a year there, then I moved on to HCL Tech, basically a decade-long journey at HCL. I did a variety of roles. Started as a senior management trainee in their business solutions group, then did pre-sales, business development and solutions marketing roles, right? So then went on to lead the team for about 2 years. Then I moved to US, right, to take up a full-time sales role, and basically built and managed a $5 million plus business, digital solutions business for one
Wow.
of our Fortune 500 client major of HCL Tech. Then, while I was doing that, I got to move back to India for personal reasons, right? Uh, so parallelly, that's the time I was watching how Indian B2B SaaS, as a sector is really growing exponentially, and I was very curious and I wanted to be a part of this growth story. So when I was contemplating this, actually, I got a good opportunity to lead the go-to-market and sales enablement function for HCL's IoT and AI product division, right? So I moved back from US to India, basically built and led the team. It's close to a team of about 10 people for about 2.5 years. Then I got an opportunity to lead the product marketing function at Hello.ai. So basically, again, build the teams from the scratch and led that function for about 2 years. After that, I got an opportunity to interact with the MoEngage team. And here I am. I currently lead the product marketing team at MoEngage. Really blessed to be surrounded by a great team of PMMs, product managers, and a whole lot of other cross-functional leaders. Yeah, so I mean that's how I would put it as a quick summary trailer of my career journey into PMM.
That's That's amazing and pretty interesting. I mean, from manufacturing to sales to overall GTM and then specifically to product marketing. That's a very interesting journey, and it gives a very different perspective,
Mhm.
given the diversity that you've got in your background, right? The diverse roles you've gone through, and I'd love to talk about a lot of different multiple facets of product marketing. So I would like to cover as much ground as we can during this short conversation that we have. But to get started, I love my favorite question. It's a very famous saying that product marketing is a very misunderstood function, and we all know
Mhm.
it works very differently in every single for every different company, right? I wanted to
Mhm.
understand what's your perspective on that. What do you define product marketing as? What does your team what do your teams usually do? What are their goals and so on?
Yeah, actually, you're right, right? So, product marketing is, generally different across companies, and it kind of really depends on the stage of the growth that the company is in, right? Let's say, for example, if you are in an early stage 0 to 1 journey, right? The focus or the intensity will be heavily on the product market fit (PMF), right? Let's say if
Mhm.
you're in a 1 to 10 journey, right? Now the focus is going to be heavily in terms of fueling growth, demand generation, etc. Right? Let's say if you're a little bit more advanced, if you're in a 10 to 100 journey, right? Now the focus is going to be more in terms of scaling, in terms of expansion to new markets, new product segments, so on and so forth, right? So it kind of really depends on the stage of the growth that the company is in. But having said that, right, I personally believe product marketing as a function is majorly responsible for four key dimensions, right? Number one, being a custodian of customer and market insights, right? So how do you bring in basically the outside in point of view about your customers and markets, which your broader organization can leverage upon? So that's number one. Number two, as a product marketing function, how are you responsible for shaping up the product perception in the market, right? In terms of effective storytelling, right? Basically capturing your mind share of your customers about your product in the market.
Mhm.
The third key dimension is in terms of how do you go to market successfully, right? Basically, by being an effective GTM strategist, how do you launch new products and incremental feature releases to the market on a continual basis? Fundamentally, driving your new product awareness and product adoption, basically the wallet share of the product, right?
Right.
The last but not least, the fourth key dimension is about sales enablement and evangelization, right? See, when I say evangelization, it's just not limited to sales alone. It's applicable to all the customer facing functions, right? Whether it is your marketing, pre-sales, customer success, solutions consulting, so on and so forth, right? So, how you as a PMM function, as a central orchestrator, can enable everybody in your organization to evangelize your product story in a much more consistent and repeatable fashion, right? So yeah, so that's how I would classify these four as the major responsibilities of the PMM function. There could be few other sub dimensions as well, like unders relations, etc. But I'd say this kind of all encompasses, in my opinion, the broader responsibilities of the PMM function. Kusha.
That's great. And I think it's a very comprehensive way to put it. Thanks for
Mhm.
that. And I mean, we'd love to definitely dive deep into some of these dimensions a bit more. And before we get there, can you help us understand a little bit about what are the some foundational skills that can help product marketers excel at their role? Based on what you just narrated.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, see, to excel in the product marketing role, see, I personally believe there are multiple key foundational skills that are essential, right? Let me pick some of those here, right? Starting with know your customers, right? The PMMs need to have a really firm understanding of who your customer personas are, right? Their day-to-day challenges and requirements, and how your product is helping them overcome those challenges, and
Mm-hmm.
also how is it enabling them transform their business or operations, right? It could be things like how is it improving their leads, their sales, or it could be like how is it helping them reducing their operational costs, or streamlining their support, or enhancing their customer experience. It can be any of these dimensions, right? But PMs need to have a really good understanding of that, right? Also, they need to have a good understanding of how their customers are using their product, right? What are the most
Correct.
frequented, use cases that they are deploying the product for? What is it they really like about the product, and equally, what is it they don't like about your product, right? So that fundamental understanding, any PMM should have. The second, I would say, is in terms of know your market, right? Because the PMM should be good at doing a very thorough market research and need to have a very profound understanding of key market trends, technology trends that are shaping around us. How is it impacting our customers, and how is it impacting our product in turn, right? And in addition, what how is your competition performing, right? What are they really up to? How is that they're progressing? And let's say if you're operating in different markets, different regions, right, then what are those specific regional trends and dynamics that you need to be aware of as a product marketer?
Right.
So another third important dimension is to know your product deeply well, right? I can't stress enough on this, because see, having a very deeper understanding of your product, what's the core customer challenge the product is solving for? What are the peripheral challenges that the product is solving for? How is your product evolving? What is its roadmap? What's the future vision of the product that your organization has? So PMs really need to have a firm grasp on that, right?
Right.
So these three things are really critical, right? Knowing your customers, knowing your market, knowing your product deeply well, right? Because the insights from all of this is what will germinate into a what I would say compelling positioning and messaging, right? Because that is what everybody in your organization can completely lean upon. So if I could say these three are some of the hard, skill sets, Kushal. I could also think of few other, if I could name it as soft skills that I've personally seen helping PMMs excel in their role. Some of them are communication storytelling, right? Uh, PMMs need to be really great storytellers, right? With compelling value narratives to your market, right? That when I say market, that includes your prospects, your customers, your analysts, partners, so on and so forth, right? And equally to internal teams, right, including your sales, customer success, pre-sales, etc., right? In fact, I would say the extent of the frequency and the stronger the quality of the internal communications, that will go a long way for PMS, because that is what will actually enable wider teams to tell the product stories in a much more consistent and powerful fashion to the market, right?
Right.
Another thing that I could think of is in terms of cross-functional collaboration, right? I would say very, very grossly undermined, but a very important skill, right?
My
Because see,
favorite.
we as PMMs, yeah, so we don't come to the table with a hierarchical authority, right? So he or she as PMM, they should be able to influence a whole variety of stakeholders across the functions, whether it's a product, sales, customer success, right? And important, they need to align on the key strategic go to market objectives, and equally the business outcomes, right? So unless until that collaboration and stakeholder management is fixed on, that's absolutely critical, because otherwise they'll fall apart, right?
Right.
The last I mean, another thing which I frequently tell people is that being strategic and data driven, right? Because we as PMMs often get stuck with many of our tacticalities of our day-to-day work, right? So they are important. Not saying it's not important; they are unavoidable,
Mhm.
but we have a choice of constantly pulling ourselves out of this and wear a strategic hat in parallel, so that you can apply a fine balance of both your short-term as well as long-term objectives in line with the broader business goals, right? Just not that, how could you identify right metrics to chase, right? Because which is what will actually enable the PMMs to take those data-driven decisions so that they can fine-tune their what I would say PMM interventions to the market, right? Yeah,
Perfect.
I mean, these are some of the things that I've seen in my experience working, really well for PMMs to excel in that role. Yeah, that's how I would put it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would totally agree on every single aspect that you mentioned. Given the amount of output that is expected from product marketers, like, I think you pretty much classified it in that way: input versus output. Input is where you get your customer insights, product knowledge, and market
Mhm.
research spot
Yep,
on. And then that's what sort of fuels the output, which is your storytelling, the collaboration,
absolutely,
and then being data driven. You need that data to be data driven. So I think
absolutely.
that's Pretty great. Now let's switch to some of the nuances, within some key functions of product marketing. How do you think
Okay.
product marketers can sort of weave a very good collaboration with product and product managers so that
Mhm.
they're able to get the product to the market and in a successful fashion?
Okay, good question, right? So, see, PMMs and PMs, my opinion, they are very distinct but complementary roles in the product lifecycle, right? While your PMs own the product, PMMs own the story. PMs are responsible for defining your product features, roadmap, development, so on and so forth. On the other hand, PMMs are working on focusing on positioning, messaging, go-to-market strategy, etc. Right? So this hand-in-hand, two-in-a-box collaboration is really success to really key to any successful product launch and the eventual product adoption thereafter, right? So, in my opinion, there are a lot of ways in which PMMs shall intentionally make this collaboration work stronger with the product management teams, right? Some possible areas that I could think of are, let's say, starting with customer insights and market research, right? See, PMM should continuously equip PMs with actionable insights from market research, right? That
Right.
includes your competitive analysis, your customer feedback, etc. Right? So, which will kind of ensure that the product roadmap is completely aligned with your customer needs and market trends, right? Let me give a scenario example here. Let's say, for example, FPM is kind of working on let's say, an AI powered analytics tool, right? Which they have recently launched. And the PMM goes, conducts interviews with their customers and kind of
Mhm.
discovers that the customers are kind of satisfied broadly with major functionalities, but major to a larger portion of the customers are kind of really frustrated with the overly complex dashboards of the product, right? So now this feedback shall be taken back by the PMM to the PM, right? So that they can really prioritize a very user friendly, simplistic, and customizable dashboard. So now what you're doing is you're kind of aligning your product with the customer sentiments and the market needs that you're surfacing, right? So
Right.
this is kind of hypothetical one-off scenario, but there could be n number of plenty of such scenarios where the PMs can really make this work in a very collaborative fashion, right? So customer insights and market research is number one. Number two, I could think of is see how PMs and PMMs can collaboratively work together to have a unified go-to-market strategy and a very comprehensive go-to-market plan, right? That is right from the extent of outlining your launch timelines, right? Your key milestones, deliverables, racing matrix, etc. Right? So what happens is when the PMs go and focus on their product readiness point of view, whether it is your feature development, conducting your alpha trials, doing QA and testing, etc. And while on the other hand, PMMs are managing or getting ready for marketing and sales enablement, right? That is ensuring that your product brochures are in place, collaterals are in place, your landing pages are ready, and you're also gearing up for training your sales teams, etc. Right? So what happens is both the parties can come back and update each other in terms of what is the progress in terms of each of these dimensions. Are there any fallouts? And if there are, what are the course corrections that needs to be done? And then importantly, how do you communicate that in a joint fashion to the broader organization, right? Not just that, PMMs shall also really work very closely and consult the PMs to validate their positioning and messaging, right? And also the sales material that they have produced. That includes your maybe your demos or your FAQ docs or your objection handling scripts, etc. So that it's a very unified point of view to the market and just not a siloed PMM point of view alone, right? So when you're doing this, you're actually ensuring that the sales team is kind of communicating effectively the intended product value to the market, and there's no gap there, right? So that's another area that I say. Yeah, one more thing that which I will really like to have this is in terms of how do you have continuous feedback loops post your launch between PMMs and PMMs. Sorry, PMs, right? See, launch is one, right? What do you do post launch, right? Because PMMs and PMs can really collaboratively track those key performance indicators, right? That could be things like your your product adoption, your user feedback, the recent sales, performance on the recently launched product, etc. Right. So when you kind of regularly review these metrics, so that you can evaluate the success of the launch and identify areas for improvement. Right. More importantly, how do you leverage this post-launch insights? Because how do you use that to refine your product features as
Right.
necessary? And in case if there are any adjustment that are needed in the go-to-market strategies, that can also be done. So thereby, your as PMMs, you are continuously driving, growth, and then also you're really optimizing your product market fit in the market, right? Yeah, these are some of the ways that I could really believe. I have seen in my experience good PMM, how they can collaboratively to work to make it a brilliant two in a box combo. And when it is done in an ideal fashion, it can absolutely, catapult and catalyze the growth forward for the wider org.
Yeah, I mean, I think that continuous feedback loop that you just mentioned, I think that's probably the
Mhm.
most crucial part of that collaboration between product marketers and product
True that.
managers. Because also because I think a lot of teams sort of don't really prioritize that as much as they should be. Their focus is to
Mm.
just launch and then see what happens, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But that
yeah.
continues. I mean, when you launch, your product is 99% not where it should be, right? And the way to
True.
get it there is through that continuous feedback loop, which is obviously
Absolutely.
orchestrated by the product marketer. So that's the most crucial bit of that collaboration. And
Mhm.
so product marketers and product managers is obviously one big collaboration aspect,
Mm.
especially that benefits in the long term. But
Mm.
another key collaboration is, I think, with sales, right?
Mm.
Especially on the sales enablement bit. Like, what are ways in which you have been able to collaborate and add value to sales enablement?
Yeah, I would say again an interesting question. See, my opinion, PMMs should view, sales enablement through a very strategic, lens, and rather than the tactical execution point of view, right? So the way we discussed about, PM collaboration, there are quite a number of ways in which PMMs can actually make sales enablement as a real, force multiplier for the organization, right? Some potential areas that I could think of are, starting with creating, I would say, targeted and actionable enablement content, right? See, because when it comes to sales enablement, it's not about creating a plethora of content for sales reps, right? It's about creating that right content, right? That can
Right.
drive meaningful conversations and which can basically accelerate the sales process, right? These could include things like your persona based messaging guides, your competitive battle cards, your objection handling scripts, and even use case examples, right? Which the sales reps can effectively engage the prospects more, more
Correct.
elaborately, right? Uh, so the broad idea here is to provide content that is easy to access, practical, and also which is directly applicable in day-to-day sales conversations, right? So that's one area I would say. The second is in terms of how you as a PMM as a function can deliver continuous market and competitive insights to your sales counterparts, right? Because see, we as PMMs, we are well positioned to provide the sales teams with in-depth research and ongoing updates on what's happening in the market, what are all the key technology breakthroughs, and what are key customer insights that's coming from your interviews, what are the competitive updates, so on and so forth, right? Because see, when you keep sales informed on these key real-time data and updates, actually you're helping them anticipate buyer needs more strongly, right? Handle objections more confidently, and more importantly, how do you help them position the product effectively in an ideal fashion, right? How do you do this? Regular market briefings, periodical competitive analysis sessions, and more importantly, share and evangelize a lot of customer success stories. Right? It could be like one of your product line is really working, and your customers are really liking, or something is really good in some specific vertical. You're able to gain traction, right? So when you evangelize and start sharing this more and more on a frequent basis, you're actually becoming a trusted source of valuable insights for the sales teams, right? So that's number two. another one, yeah, in fact, and I'd say the most important one is how do you make your sales enablement as a two-way communication channel, right? Because see, any true partnership that will require the two-way communication, right? And PMMs, I believe, shall shall consciously establish those forums or mechanisms for sales teams to come back and provide feedback on the effectiveness of your sales enablement materials, or it could be things like whether your messaging is working or not, what's working, what's not working, or it could be even on the product features, right? What your customers are liking, they're not liking, etc., right? Because when you actively start listening to the sales teams and start incorporating their inputs, you're actually refining your GTM strategies more and more appropriate, and you're demonstrating that you're responsive to the needs of the field, right? What your customers and markets, your partners are saying, right? So this is what will really actually build trust between both the teams, and it can
Yeah.
really help a good culture of collaboration. Yeah, so these are some of the ways that I could think, because when it is done in this ideal fashion, as I was saying, for PM, it can really these sales enablement can really increase the effectiveness of the sales teams, completely shorten your sales cycles, and in fact boost conversion rates a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that building trust part is very crucial here again, right? Because even, I mean, I'm guilty of this too. I have created content, collateral, and just rolled it out to the sales team, expecting them to use it within, I think, the first 2 months of me joining a company, right? And that's usually never really bought in by them because they don't know you. They don't know if your work is good. You need to build that confidence in them
Correct.
to be able to do that. And yeah, that's obviously very, very important for any product marketer to sort of collaborate with sales, especially. And
Mm.
so, while we've spoken a lot about, what your learnings are from your experience over the last 15
Mm.
plus years, a
Mm.
lot of the things that you mentioned, I have worked on myself, and I'm sure a lot of product marketers themselves must have tried it. But
Mhm.
there's always, these are all ideal situations we're talking about, right? The reality is slightly
Mm.
different from that because
Mm.
there are
Mm.
obviously a lot
Mm.
of
Mm.
operational and other challenges that come in, right? Can you tell us a little bit about maybe one or two
Mhm.
challenges, that similar challenges that you faced trying to incorporate these strategies and these methodologies, and how you sort of overcame those?
Okay, okay. Yeah. Challenges, there are plenty, right? So probably let me pick up a couple of things for our discussion. In fact, I wouldn't say they are challenges. I would say they're more of nuances, right? See, one thing that I could think of more often is balancing your strategic priorities with tactical execution, right? Because we as PMMs, I'm sure most of us will agree, PMMs often get pulled in multiple directions. Let's say on one end you're developing your high level strategies like GTM plans, positioning, etc., whereas at the other end you're getting pulled into multiple tactical tasks, right? Let's take a example here. Let's say, for example, a PMM is working on the launch of a, let's say, a conversational AI platform, right? He or she is tasked with defining the positioning strategy for a specific market. When they are working on this, parallelly they are getting a request for preparing for a webinar for an existing product feature update. When they are doing that, they are also getting a parallel request in terms of doing an update to a existing product deck or brochure or battle card, right? So on and so forth, right?
Mhm.
Uh, are all of these important? Absolutely, yes. Can one be compromised over another? Most likely not. So how do we address this, right? So my opinion, I'm not able to find any silver bullet here, but I would say, I've seen some good PMMs tackle this in adopting certain measures, right? Uh, I would say first is set clear boundaries and expectations on the timelines with your cross-functional stakeholders, right? Let's say, for example, you as a PMM are over engulfed with a lot of adopters of the content request that's coming towards you, right? You can very well establish a good content request process and let your cross-functional counterparts know what are the typical timelines that they can expect from you for any kind of a PMM asset. Right? Let's say, for example, something like a product pitch deck, from the scratch, it might take a timeline of about a week or two, depending upon the complexity. Or if it is things like a very minor incremental, updates to a product brochure or a battle card, it might take just as less as a day or two, right? So because this way you will be able to minimize the ad hocness of the request coming towards you, and so that you don't get really derailed from the strategic projects that you're focusing on, right? And also, I've also seen good PMs do is in terms of how do you foster content reusability more and more, right? Because when you build a solid and central library of reusable assets, right, that could include your, that could house your messaging houses, your frequented decks, battle cards, etc. Right, so that you can really make it what I would say self-serve for all the customer facing teams, sales, pre-sales, customer success, etc. Right. So again, here you're kind of eliminating those ad hoc pings that you're getting. Where is this? Where is that? Etc. Right. So thereby you can really free up your time as a PMM for your strategic initiatives in the project that you're working on. Right. So that's one I can think of. The another one, yeah, this is even more frequent, right? So see, how do you measure and demonstrate the quantitative impact of the PMM
Yeah.
initiatives or interventions, right? See, we as PMs often struggle to showcase our impact on key metrics, which the broader org is tracking, right? Whether it is your revenue, or product adoption, or pipeline growth, etc. Right? Because see, that's due to the very inherent nature of a role, which is very cross-functional and indirect nature of the role, right? Uh, but what
Right.
happens is without clear attribution, we are actually, the efforts from the PMMs might get risk being, I would say, undervalued by stakeholders, right? So some of the ways that I have seen, again, a lot of PMs consciously do that is when you define specific metrics very clearly right at the project outset, and more importantly, how do you regularly report this with data driven outcomes, right? I'll give you a couple of examples. Let's say, for example, our positioning and launch campaign contributed to a 30% increase in signups, right? From which 60% of those users who have signed up got converted after engaging with the campaign assets or getting into the product page, right? So that could be one, direct area of attribution, right? Or let's say, for example, you as a PMM have recently conducted a product webinar, right? How much percentage of those attendees actually got converted into leads, and how much of those leads actually became opportunities in your CRM system, and how much of them got converted into the actual sales, right? So as long as you can track these and then map it to the broader business goals or the outcomes that the organization is chasing, I would say you can reasonably address the quantitative value part of it. Yeah. So yeah, so these are a couple of things. Answering your question, some of the most frequented nuances that I could think of.
Right. I think measuring impact is something a lot of, I mean, most product marketers will probably resonate with, because it's very rare that product marketing is able to, directly impact any of the key business metrics, right? But we pretty much affect a lot of them indirectly. Like
Absolutely.
if we do our jobs right, a lot of
Yeah.
metrics that the business is sort of measuring, like key metric that they're measuring, will improve. So I think it's good to sort of track that and keep monitoring those to understand, whether what you're doing is in the right direction, is, how you can iterate and all of that. So I think that's pretty great. I think that's we can. I would like to wrap the conversation, but before we do that, can you can you suggest or recommend some books or templates or any such frameworks that you've probably used, when you started out or even right now, right? For somebody that's aiming to become a product marketer now, or somebody who's trying to or moving into a leadership role within product marketing, what sort of advice would you have for them?
Uh, advice, advice is, yeah, I don't know. It's generally easier said than done.
We all know things.
Don't sound like, yeah, yeah. So see, I'll say probably a few things that I've seen good PMMs doing in kind of shaping up themselves, right? I would say I'll probably start with master your fundamentals, right? Focus on key skills like your market research, customer insights, positioning, messaging. Because these are all hard skills, and then they are really the core pillars of product marketing. There's no shortcut there, and these are really really foundational to the success of you as an individual and you as broader team, right? Second, going back to our conversation, embrace cross-functional collaboration, right? Build really strong relationships with your product, sales, your marketing, counterparts, because when you start learning to speak their language and constantly aligning your goals with theirs, because that's what will accelerate your growth in your specific orgs, right? That stakeholder management on a day-to-day basis is absolutely critical, very hard, but very much needed skill that we need to groom ourselves, right? Third is again re-insisting what I was saying before. Be really really data driven, right? Consciously develop that habit of making decisions based on either on customer data or on market data or on your performance metrics, etc., right? Because once you start understanding how do you put data to use and analytics to and insights to optimize your strategies, because that'll be a real game changer for the long run. Other things, network within the community. See, we all learn from each other, right? I would say nobody has figured it out all, right? See, I have a honest admission. I'm work in progress, really. Learn from experienced PMMs, join communities like Product Marketing Alliance (PMA). Sharebird is another that I can think of, right? See, surround yourself with more and more industry peers so that will help you updated, grow faster. And stay curious and be more adaptable, right? You see, the tech landscape out there is kind of constantly changing, right? It's a really crazy VUCA world out there, right? So I would say, like, so
Absolutely.
being more curious about the whether it is either new tools or any trends that's emerging, or frameworks, proven frameworks that's there in the ecosystem. Because when you're consciously watching this, because that will kind of really bring you that flexibility and adaptability to thrive in a dynamic environment. Yeah. So these are some of the things that I could think of. As
Yeah,
far as the books are concerned, uh, I would say obviously awesome is by April Dunford, and one of my personal favorite, Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. I even recently read a good book which is called as The First 90 Days by Michael Watkins. It has nothing to do with product marketing, very closely, but broadly, when somebody is taking up a new role, when they're taking new leadership roles, or if you're getting into a new org, it kind of gives a good framework in terms of how cross-functional collaboration, how cross-functional objectives needs to be set, etc., right? Yeah. So I would recommend that. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's great advice, and I would definitely focus on the stay curious part, because that and being able to figure out that cross-functional collaboration bit has definitely worked wonders for me, right? And
Yeah.
so I think that's pretty great advice. Thanks a lot, Ganesh. It's been lovely to have you, and this has been a super insightful conversation. Thanks a lot for sharing your expertise and your learnings from your experiences. It's been a pleasure having you here, and
Yeah. My pleasure as well, Kushal. Thank you, for the opportunity, for inviting me here to interact with you today. And my sincere compliments to you. You're doing a wonderful job in bringing the broader PMM community together, and promoting this cross learning of ideas and best practices is really fantastic. Keep up the great work, and my sincere thanks to all the listeners here for tuning in. And I really wish good luck to each and every one of you. And thank you, and let's stay connected.
awesome. Super grateful to have you here. Like I said, thanks a lot. And before we wrap up, one final question for our audience,
Yeah.
for you, sorry. Uh, if our audience wants to get in touch with you and probably talk a little bit deeper about the conversation we've had, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Mm, yeah, I mean, you can you can always ping me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I would say that's easier one. Yeah, my replies might be delayed. Yeah, but we can definitely connect as much
Yeah.
as possible. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Thanks a lot, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please don't forget to subscribe, and feel free to leave any comments if you enjoyed the episode, or drop in any feedback for me or for Ganesh. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks, Kushal. Thank you.